Welcome to Crackle Weekly Reviews, episode 57. I'm Mike, alongside with gentlemen.
Daniel.
And Vincent.
Guys, how was it? We had a loaded show this week, but I don't think there was any big standouts.
No, not that I know of.
No, not really. There's some stinkers.
Yeah, there were some stinkers. Me and Dan have a big one. But other than that, how you doing with it? How are you doing this week, guys?
Vince, how are you?
Usual terrible.
Usual terrible. It was like 70 this week out, so that was nice.
I know everyone's wearing short sleeve shirts and shorts, and all the snow's melting. So yee.
And then, knowing where I am, we'll have the annual March snowstorm at the end of the month, and we'll be right back to the beginning of it.
Yes,
but we'll start with the man who, as he says, is his usual terrible self, reading a terrible book, possibly, in Daredevil Nerdy 30 #1.
Well, it's Deadpool. You accidentally said Daredevil. This is the 30th anniversary of Deadpool, and we have a ton of stories here. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I probably counted wrong. There's 8 stories here. So the first one by Joe Kelly, arguably one of the best Deadpool writers ever. It's awful. It's cringe. It gave me a headache. There's like 100 Deadpool, kind of like the Deadpool core concept. They're all CGing a talking head, but then it turns out that behind the talking head is like this sexy chick. And then there's like this Spider-Man Deadpool who is like, hey, we don't have to fight or something, or he wins the fight or something. And then she has a pregnancy test. I don't understand it. It was terrible. Then there's a Scotty Young story, who, of course, was like, he's not the current Deadpool writer, but the Deadpool writer before the current title. His is basically the exact same concept, but instead of tons of Deadpools, we have tons of Cables either trying to go back in time to either kill or save baby Wade Wilson. Also not that good. Then Kelly Thompson, who's the current Deadpool writer, has what I think is a pre-X-Men Wolverine crashing Wade Wilson's prom. I'm not really sure. Well, obviously I know Logan is way older than Deadpool, but I'm not really sure how Deadpool's age lines up with like X-Men chronology and Logan's like, modern day chronology and stuff. So I don't know. It was all right. It was kind of funny. Fabian Nicieza as well, joined by Patrick Zurcher on art, who I believe was probably contributed the most issues in terms of art, interior art, to the Cable and Deadpool ongoing series, which Nicieza wrote in the 2000s. It starts off with a very movie-like setup. We have Francis here, but then it turns into a parody of other characters and other comics and things like that. And Zurcher, helped a lot by the colorist, I'm pretty sure, does like a parody of Captain America Comics #1. Deadpool is like, what if I were to become like Taskmaster? So we see like Taskmaster or Deadpool dressed up as Taskmaster. Then we see Deadpool as if he's Spider-Man swinging through the protest crowd from the Stan Lee era. There's a joke about pouches. It's kind of fun. It's visually cool. Then Gail Simone, previous Deadpool writer, has him team up with Agent X against Stiltman. I'm not even going to get into Agent X. That's from Gail Simone's Deadpool run in the 2000s. And Domino is also here, because obviously she's a, tangential character to Deadpool, but also Gail then pretty recently wrote a Domino series. Also, Diamondback is here. I'm pretty certain it's Diamondback. Was she in that Domino book? I have no idea. That would be very strange. I don't really fully understand what happened to Diamondback after, she stopped being Captain America's girlfriend. Then Daniel Way is here, infamous to some Deadpool writer. Somehow he didn't use his double voices gimmick. And honestly, it wasn't absolutely horrendous. It also oddly footnotes to X-Force #11 from way back in the 90s. Of all these Deadpool writers, Daniel Way is the one who pulls out a footnote. Jerry Duggan obviously has a story, up there with Joe Kelly, probably. Those are the two. Kelly, Duggan, and Nicieza are probably the definitive Deadpool writers. Jerry Duggan plays on the Ryan Reynolds movie Buried a little bit. Obviously, crossover there, Ryan Reynolds. Honestly, The best story of this, and really the only reason to read this, was the final story, written and drawn by Rob Liefeld. It's even more meta than the rest. It jokes about the first appearance. Deadpool's like holding New Mutants 98. It goes through his costume evolution, like, you know, his eyes changed this way. He got the little, you know, pokey knot on his hood, and Rob is like, if I had any regret, it would be giving Deadpool a choker, essentially. And then there's jokes about pouches, and we see Rob actually appear in the story, and Rob is apparently slaving away, sewing together new pouches. They did cover all their bases, pulling in most of the major writers, but 75% or even more of this just kind of sucked. And this wasn't even that long. I said 8 stories, but they're probably like, I mean, maybe they're 8 pages each, so that, you know, that adds up to like still a pretty huge issue, but it's shorter than a lot of the crazy huge issues that DC puts out. I wish they would have just let Rob do a regular size one shot. Just have Rob do 20 pages of basically what he did. Or maybe the writers just should have done good stories, but this sucked. But it's worth it for Rob.
I feel that if there was a gun to Vince's head, he would still say it was be worth it for Rob. So take that with a grain of whatever. But we'll go to Nonstop Spider-Man #1. Joe Kelly, Chris Bachalo, Tim Townsend on inks. The brand new Spidey series finally gets its debut after a few delays from the pandemic. This was announced a long time ago. The marketing of this book is supposed to hammer it home on the action and thrills, and I think it delivers from the opening page. We see Spider-Man springing into action, trying to take down this gang of enhanced thugs with like armor and weapons. They kind of look like some of the Kingpin thugs from like the Spider-Man PS4 game. If you need the visual. Basically, they're drug runners responsible for killing one of Pete's ESU classmates, and he's, you know, setting out to stop them. There's another classmate and friend that he gets a call from saying that they tried the drugs, so Spidey has to then go and stop and save her. The story kind of weaves in and out of the present and the past as, you know, the narration sets up the story on Pete's thoughts and feelings as he fills in the missing parts. The Bachalo art is going to be an acquired taste, I think, for some people here. I think there's pages that look really good. The double page splashes, I think, look exceptionally great, especially with the color. I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago we had like the 3rd issue of that Wolverine Black, White, and Blood series where he did one of the stories, and we were really like, Bachalo's art's not going to work if it's just black and white and then ink. So you're going to need the color to really fill in the more dimension of it. And right here you have it, and I think it's Marciano Menez on the colors, so it really shines in all areas, especially with the Tim Townsend inks. If I were to compare it to Wolverine Black, White, and Blood, I think this is 100 times better, and it shows how much those inks and colors depend on it. My biggest issue is that Spider-Man's size and shape is constantly changing, and it's always too small for my liking. Too often here, he kind of looks more like chibi Spider-Man and not normal Spider-Man. Bachalo's Pete reminds me of John Cusack, but outside of like the weird proportions, it looks fine. I did just watch It Was Better Off Dead, so maybe that's why it's in my head, but I don't know. That's just how he looks to me. Other issue is exactly where does this take place in the status quo to the current time in Pete's life? I know he was enrolled in ESU at the beginning of Spencer's run, but I think from 61 we see he's no longer doing that. But the pandemic and delays are going to complicate this. So, just take it as it is. It's nonstop Spider-Man. It's just going to be action and thrills. And Joe Kelly delivers on that. And I still like his voice here for Pete and the characters row. Backup feature here drawn by Dale Eaglesham, which was a surprise. I didn't think we were going to get that. Is the return of Baron Zemo killing Bon Chance, and it looks to be taking out the other Hydra splinter cells, and sets his sights on New York and the gang that Spider-Man was fighting. So that's going to set up the big bad of this run. Spider-Man's eventually going to have to tangle with Baron Zemo, which should be pretty fun. I thought this was pretty good, guys. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a fun Spider-Man book. I mean, I'll probably be on for another issue. Yeah, the introduction of Zemo, I think, is interesting and really cool to see him kind of in like that classic costume, obviously. So There's also like a really dope moment in that, like where he kind of flips around and like shoots people and stuff. So I'm like, I didn't know Zemo could do all that. But yeah, like you said, I think the art is definitely an acquired taste. There's some panels here where Spider-Man's eyes are like really elongated and like the head is like weirdly shaped. But aside from that, I like the panel layouts here. They're very dynamic. Yeah, I'm gonna keep reading this. This is definitely a nice little kind of anthology book. It feels like not really anthology, but like a book that's like separated out from continuity, which I don't mind reading.
It is in continuity though.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was amazing. I want to really quickly point out there's a little Doctor Strange and Zelma cameo, which was, I guess, he's done stuff between, but that was Botchlow's like last major like hyped up #1 on Doctor Strange with Jason Aaron. I thought this was really hype. I like Botchlow's art, and I think this is way clearer in terms of the actual kind of drawing, the characters and the backgrounds and everything. This was way clearer than the black and white or the Wolverine story that Mike referenced, but also way clearer than other things I've seen him on. I'm pretty sure he did issues of Amazing Spider-Man in the Spencer run, at least 1 or 2 way earlier. And this is a lot clearer than that. I think some of it is on the coloring. Obviously I didn't check to compare who colored him before, who colored him here. But then I also even think to his Doctor Strange run, I think this is a lot. I think a lot of it is the coloring, because you have a lot brighter colors here. Sometimes with certain characters or settings and colors, Botchlow's art can kind of look a little muddy, and sometimes that's a good thing. Like the Shed story, which is also a Spider-Man story, that's very dark with Botchlow's art. But here, it's really showing like how his art can really translate to like a really bright colored thing. The points you made about like his like take on Spidey himself, like the kind of like weird, like diminutive kind of thing, reminds me a little bit of, there are some artists that draw him like that. Like honestly, especially earlier on, like Michael Ringo in more of the 90s than the 2000s era, but he kind of drew Spider-Man a little bit like that. And also Mark Buckingham in the like early 2000s kind of reminds me of that as well. If anything, I thought the art was fantastic. If anything, I think he's going just a tiny bit too experimental with the panel layouts, not really his storytelling, but just like he'll have lots of canted angles, and panels will be like cropped on like the corner of the page, and basically the entire page is diagonal and things like that. I think he could tone that down just a tiny bit, but as far as all the action and this just, going with the nonstop thing, which is honestly a stupid title, but the premise of this, storyline or a series, I thought was conveyed perfectly. The human moments are a little awkward. Peter looks a little, not recognizable compared to other books. I honestly like slightly like skimmed over the Baron Zemo part just because I was mostly here for Botchlow. I really, really love this, and you guys are about to talk about it in a second because I don't read it. Well, I occasionally do.
Well, that's not true. You come in when you want, and then you come out quickly.
But so yeah, I haven't read in a couple issues. Actually, I think I read the last issue. But this is way better than Amazing Spider-Man.
I would say they were about even for me this week. There's options on both that I like. I just wrapping this one up. Yeah, I do agree. Some of the panel layouts are a little crazy, but I think that's playing into the book. And yeah, the non-stop name was a little bit weird when announced, but it kind of grew on me, and it definitely lives up to that name in the book, which is like, if it works in the book and lives up to it, I can't. The write up in the back by Nick Lowe, the editor, he was like, "This book, we want to make this like Speed, the comic book, but for Spider-Man," and that's definitely that's I guess their mission statement. They definitely live to that because it's just action, action, action.
Well, and it fits the characters. There's not too many characters that you could do this about. I mean, the other one, and technically, someone might argue that every single Flash story should feel like this, or at least a lot of Flash stories. But really, like when I think of a character that's like, always in a rush, doing things fast, everything like that, acrobatics and everything like that, it'd probably be Flash and Spider-Man. I'm sure I'm missing something major, but this is a perfect fit for the character as well.
Yes, I fully agree. And then what Dan said, this book's still in 616, but you can just totally pick this up, not really have an idea of what's going on in current status quo of the 60 plus issues now that we're deep in on Spencer, and completely feel fine to just breeze in on this. So no, I think we're all high on this. This is a pick of the week contender for me, but I don't know if I'm going to fully give it to it by the end of the show. But I'm still thinking on what I'm going to give it to. All right, Dan, you had a good sneeze. I saw that. We all did. But talk about Amazing Spider-Man number 61.
Yeah, it just seems like anytime I go on air, or do a video on my channel, I always seem to sneeze. So I don't know what it is, but anyways, we'll get into Amazing Spider-Man number 61, written by Nick Spencer, art by Patrick Gleason, bless up, and colors by Edgar Delgado. So at last, Gleason is doing art for Amazing Spider-Man. Wow. Spider-Man, we open up to Spidey monologuing as we get a splash page of his new suit. Yay! First issue that Gleason is doing, and he's not drawing the classic suit. Hopefully this won't last for long. But anyways, Kingpin and a bunch of crime leaders make plans to capture Boomerang, whom is actually working with Pete to find the pieces of the Lifeline tablet. So it turns out that Pete is actually living with Boomerang, and Gog, who was that little alien creature that we saw 10 issues back or something, maybe more than that. Pete goes to see Nora Winters, who gives him the new Spidey suit that apparently live streams all of the fights he has. And Jonah Jameson's there, and he's just yeah, give this to Spider-Man, and we'll pay him money to wear it, and we can basically live stream everything. And Pete's well, what if he doesn't want you looking at everything in his life? And he's well, Pete, the Spider-Man has the ability to determine when he wants to turn the suit on and stuff like that. So we kind of get him fighting crime and stuff like that, and he has during the fight he gets tweets, and he has to use sponsors. It's really cringe stuff, but I guess that's what was intended, I guess. But back at the Bugle, Joe and Randy catch up, and then back Bullseye then takes aim at Gog while Gog and Boomerang are at the park. So yeah, we'll see what goes on with that, but yeah, we'll see what it's like. What's going to happen with poor Gog. So not really much going on here with this issue, I guess, aside from getting a new suit, but I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know what it really looks like, really. It kind of looks a little derpy to me, but anyways, Mike, what did you think of this? I saw Vince in the chat said that just by my description of it, he said it sounds terrible. I wasn't sure if he was talking about me talking or if it was just the issue, but yeah.
No, he's talking about the issue, which I think you downplayed by saying there's not a lot going on here. This is all playing up the Kingpin stuff we've seen. We kind of get a mini reunion of Spencer's what was his not a Sinister Six book, the one with all the villains that I can't remember the name of. We get a reunion of those Sinister Foes or whatever it was. Foes. Yeah, Superior Foes of Spider-Man. We get a reunion there with those characters. And you mentioned that Pete's living with Boomerang. We've seen that from issue 1. That's been a thing. I don't know if you forgot that, but we capitalize on the fact that Pete's broke and he has been collecting unemployment, and that's running out. So that's why he's going to Nora here, and that's we play off the podcast issues with Jonah, who's on his side, and the suit it's for VR. It's live stream VR, so everyone's on their headsets, so you see what Spider-Man sees. But because Spencer's doing basically showing how things are so corporatized, where even in media, he's got to say his quips are now being written by fans. And I like the one moment where it was just one of them's just he wants him to say a shout out to his friends. He's this isn't a quip. Or for example, I think one of them, he's at the end of it, he's this superhero takedown was brought to you by Me Undies, which if you listen to any podcast, how many of them have the same 4 ads, which I think is funny. and you do that social commentary on that might not be for everyone, but I did enjoy it. So there's elements to this I like. The suit itself, I think, looks disgusting. It's white, orange with green highlights. Those are just three colors that don't work together. Especially on the eyes. I think the eyes would be a lot better if they didn't have the green dots inside them. If they were just the white and the orange, it would probably look better. But thankfully, it's only going to stick around for a few issues. I like where we're building here with the Lifeline stuff because we've had that in the background for a few issues. And then, Dan, we saw the news this week that it's going to go in only a few more issues. It's going to go weekly again with the giant chameleon story and have that go with it. And then I think right after that, I think we'll have the return of our good friend in Harry Osborn / Kindred. So as long as things keep moving, I'm fine. I'm looking at the giant checklist of what a writer is going to do with Spider-Man, and Spencer's kind of hitting on it. He's used Goblin. He's introduced a new costume. He's used most of the villains. He's brought Mary Jane back. He's I feel like we are getting to a point where maybe issue 100, we're going to wrap this thing up. Maybe issue 75. Because what else is there left to do is what I'm wondering. How much longer is he going to be on the book? Personally, for me, I hope he doesn't leave. I hope he's on for a while. Vince, on the other hand, hopes we move on in something. But I know for people that are going to be mad about the decompressed storytelling, I feel like there's not a character with more decompressed, stretched out storytelling in all of the Marvel Universe than Spider-Man. So what do you want here? I mean, obviously we're 60+1 issues in. There's going to be dips in highs and lows. This might be one of the little lows, but I'm having fun with it. And that's the point, I guess. I don't know, Dan, are you still enjoying it? I'm still enjoying it, even though there's elements to me not liking it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still enjoying it, and yeah, I guess I must have misspoke. I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of setup going on in this issue. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still into it. I think he still kind of keeps it grounded enough where it's not too you don't really get too lost in the weeds with what he's setting up. So you gotta give him credit for that, I guess.
Yeah, it's and then also at the end of the day, Patrick Gleason is back. Is the suit bad? Yeah, but if he's been away this whole time, and let's say we get a stretch of 10 to 15 issues where Gleason's drawing Spider-Man, that's a fair trade-off, right? I hope. We'll see.
Yeah.
If we come back here in 2 issues and it's Mark Bagley or Edward Delgado or who else, I think Edward Delgado's colorist though, but I mean you probably could draw the book. But yeah, if we get into the cycling artists again, it's going to be okay, well, that's a downgrade. But overall, I'm still happy with Amazing Spider-Man. Your mileage may vary, but we're 61+ issues in.
I'm just
with
imagining
the most best character in comics. What do you,
I'm just imagining when this gets made into an omnibus, there's going to be so many artists names on the cover. It's time. It's going to be
well, no, they'll make it Ryan Otley for volume 1.
Yeah,
because we're 61+ issues in now. We'll have at least 2 volumes of this thing once they start doing those. Though it is mentioned we don't have any Dan Slott omnibuses for Spider-Man yet. Those have to be around the corner with how long that is. I'm waiting to see that. We're finally getting Charles Soule Daredevil, so maybe down the stretch here, later 2021, 2022, we might start getting the Dan Slott Spider-Man omnibuses. But I'll turn it to Vince for an all ages book that I enjoyed pretty good. I wondered how he felt about it.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, there's a weird, when you think about it, it's pretty weird that there are very few omnibuses of modern Spider-Man runs. We very recently got JMS, but there's Brand New Day. Brand New Day would be 2. They probably make Gauntlet separate. There's Big Time, then there's Superior, etc. Whatever, different discussion. So Thor and Loki Double Trouble #1 by Mariko Tamaki and Guri Hiru. Here's some little all ages fun. It has a meta writing style, at least at first, not in an annoying Deadpool way, but the captions are snarky, and then Thor essentially talks to the reader initially, but he's not really. He's talking to a crowd around him. But I think that probably technique, especially for the opening, probably works well for kids, which is ultimately what this is for. Thor and Loki are both trying to impress kind of Asgardian civilians. And then they get into some tussling, of course. They're young, oh, by the way, in this story. Loki dares him to steal a horn from their father's vault, and he basically just is like, "I dare you." So Thor goes along with it, and then when Loki blows it, it summons a giant serpent, and that's kind of where we leave off. Thor's like, "No, you got to help me deal with the serpent now." This is fun. It's pretty much in line with like a Tales of Asgard backup story from back in the Silver Age, a tale of young Thor and Loki. But I think this is particularly all ages oriented, or I should say young oriented, as opposed to the last Guri project we discussed on the show a little bit, which was Superman Smashes the Klan, which was totally able to be read by young people, but also had a lot of elements and things that you could really dig into if you're an older reader. I also don't quite like the character designs, and it's not about the art style of Guri, just the specific designs. Though, yeah, I mean, that's basically my takeaway. Though, back to my stupid Spider-Man comments that I started this with, I will leave this with, I'd love to see thick collections in whatever format of Gurihiru's Power Pack work from the 2000s. But I thought this was just fun.
Yeah, same. I can't think of a better artist for all ages stuff right now than Gurihiru. The stuff is just so good across the board. Outside of, I'll mention you had a little bit of comment about the designs. Yeah, Loki is very, very MCU centric, I felt, while Thor was very plain. It's weird to see one so far one end and the other one so plain on the other. Especially Thor's just kind of wearing black and brown. I would have liked to see more color on Thor a little bit. Noting he does have Mjolnir here, which is, sometimes, young tales of Thor, he doesn't have the hammer yet. That was a big case for Jason Aaron's Thor. He had like young Thor kind of like, I felt like early 20s would be a good way to age that version of Thor. He didn't have the hammer yet until the very end of the run. But, all ages will play around and do whatever you want. I'm not going to criticize it for that. Overall, dumb fun. I don't know. You sticking around for another issue? I feel like it kind of hovers on whether or not if it's a heavy week for me.
No, I don't think I'm going to. I think it's just not. It's not quite for me. I'll say the one other thing I'll say is not Gurihiru related. If you're looking for a fantastic all ages Thor story, track down Thor: The Mighty Avenger by Roger Langridge and Chris Samney. Very fantastic and perfect digestible size for readers of any age.
I was going to say that fits into that perfectly into that Superman smashes the Klan wheelhouse if it's made for all ages, but really you can just enjoy it in any section. All right, we'll go to Dan for this was probably our worst book of the week, and I apologize for him to make him read it.
Yeah, I get slammed with two like really long books this week. Anyways, so Batman Urban Legends #1. We got a bunch of stories going on here. First story is Red Hood and Batman in Cheer, written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Eddie Barrows and Eber Ferreira, Marcus Toe on flashbacks, and Adriano Lucas on colors. So a new drug is on the street called Cheer Drops, and both Batman and Red Hood are on the hunt to find its source. So Robin traces it to a mom who overdosed while Batman saves a man falling off of a building who was using the drug. So both end up conducting their own investigation. Red Hood's track brings him to the overdosed mom's kid's father, if that makes any sense. Andy, who is actually a man, like a hired hand for distributing the drug. So that's a plot twist. Red Hood tracks him down, and when confronted by Red Hood, Andy says that he could care less what happens to his wife and his child, whose name is Tyler. He also gave Tyler some of the drug, which prompts Hood to shoot him, supposedly killing him, even though he has only used rubber bullets during this issue. So kind of some cringe stuff going on here too. Red Hood kind of calls the kid Blue, or the kid gives his name like Blue Hood. That's his superhero name. Yeah, this was all right, I guess. So moving on to our backup stories here, we have Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy in Roots, written by Stephanie Phillips, art by Laura Braga. Art our next story, this story, basically is just Harley reminiscing about her time and relationship with Poison Ivy, while panning back between the present and the future, as we finally see her about to plant a Poison Ivy plant that she gave Harley, I guess. So like, kind of just reminiscing about that. In the past, she's wearing like her old classic costume, I guess. So that's kind of cool, but nothing really else going on in that issue. Next one here is The Outsiders in Caretaker, part 1 of 3, written by Brandon Thomas, art by Max Dunbar. So in Japan, we see Black Lightning, sitting in a jail cell. We then flash back to earlier when Black Lightning and Katana are being chased by bad guys led by Metamorpho. So Black Lightning and Rex attempt to escape the fortress where they are captive in. And for some reason, I guess like Rex has a power that allows him to like make the fortress prison come to life. It's a little weird. So last story here is Grifter in the Long Con, part 1 of 5, written by Matthew Rosenberg, art by Ryan Benjamin. So Cole is in a shootout with Mr. Freeze in Midway City when the Justice League shows up, only after Cole and his friend are hit by an explosive. So we then flash forward to today where Cole is a bodyguard and he's given some gig to be with the Penguin, which he screws up. Batman and him fight for a little bit and then go their separate ways. Batman discovers that Nora Freeze is dead and thinks that Cole is at fault. So, yeah, really, these backup stories, really nothing to report here. Nothing. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. These ones are like parts 1 of 3 or 5 or whatever. I guess I'll keep, I guess it's worth reading those. But honestly, I feel like I don't want to read this anymore. So
I'm not reading it.
Okay.
I thought this book was going to be like an anthology title of one-offs. No, that's not what this is. This is the book for characters DC doesn't want to publish a book for anymore. So let's make a new book, slap Batman's name on it, and make sure we can cram as many other stories into this as possible so we can then inflate the price up and drive it up so you buy this thing because it has Batman's name on it with a logo straight out of like what looks to be 2005, 2006 to me, by the way. I'm wondering if that one they just had stashed in a drawer somewhere and threw it on this. I read this because, Chip Zdarsky's doing a story with Batman and Red Hood. This might be good. That's the best story in this, I have to say. I like what Zdarsky's doing with giving Red Hood possibly a kid to look after. You mentioned, how do you kill someone with rubber bullets? Well, you can still kill someone with rubber bullets when they're shooting them at point blank range, like he's doing at the end of the issue. But also, like, I hate the fact that Batman like is fine with him using rubber bullets and guns at all. It's stupid. Jason just effectively works better as a bad guy. I don't get Red Hood fans. Explain why you like him to me. I don't really understand it. Like he's the redheaded stepchild of the Batman family, and he has red hair, but he dyes it black. I don't know, man. Like, and then like Batman makes reference to he killed recently, so it's like now I'm starting to think, is 3 Jokers canon? I don't know, man. I don't know. This is kind of a mess. Like the Stephanie Phillips Harley story at least looks to be leading into her ongoing book, but you don't have to read it to get to the ongoing book. The art was good though. That was fine. I gotta be honest, I skimmed over for Outsiders, but I'm gonna let you know right now, Rex is Metamorpho, so you got that one wrong. I don't know what was chasing them though, so don't feel bad about it because I don't care. And then the last one, Grifter, which I think it's fine, but also like Matt Rosenberg, you just going up and killed Nora Freeze after we set that new status quo for her back in Detective Comics like not even a year ago. I don't know if that's your decision or editorials, but like, what the hell was up with that? We had a lot of mileage to go with villain Nora Freeze, I felt, and we're just going to take her off the board really quickly. Yeah, kind of a mess. Oh, and basically just makes me hate more of the Batman family status quo more and more, and I hate everything about it. especially as they keep leading down the road, which leads to that future state stuff with the magistrate. So I'm not happy with that at all.
I wonder how
So-
many pages Batman's actually in this book.
He's in 2 of the stories.
Yeah, but like how many pages total? Like it's like I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7
Yeah,
out of like 30 or 40.
This was definitely over 40. I felt like it was like 50, maybe 60
Yeah,
pages.
it felt longer than it probably should have been. So
This would work better if it was just an anthology book. Do a lead Batman story, or like have the lead feature be, one of the other characters with ancillary stories in the back. Multi-parts on this is not the way I would go for it, but here we are. This is only my first dud of Infinite Frontier. I like the other 2 DC books we read this week, and I'll go into those. First up, we read Superman number 29, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Phil Hester with Eric Gapsters, and Gapsters doing the inks. So when we were reading, what was it, Family Tree, that's what he was doing, because it was never specified exactly what his role was on that book. It just listed names. Johnson is starting off his run on Superman with a 2-issue arc called The Golden Age, where the focus is really not so much on Superman, but his son John, and that was the case in Infinite Frontier number 0, calling attention to John's history, basically being so crazy now, being not only a child of nothing, but he's got to find his place in this new DC universe again. And he's older, and his parents, they only have the memories of when he was young, and he was young not that long ago. And they haven't spent a lot of time with him since he got aged up, because he went to go hang out with the Legion of the Superheroes. So and then also for him, there's this giant shadow of being the son of the greatest hero in the DC universe he's got to try to live up to. So those are all elements I think that make for a good story here. Where does Superman's son basically place himself in this strange new DC universe and Infinite Frontier that we're trying to figure out for these status quos? So Superman and John are fighting off some aliens that are coming through this time displacement portal that we see set up by Amanda Waller with the help of Star Labs. Basically getting energy readings on Superman. They're able to dispatch it easily, though they see that the radiation from this thing they find negatively impacts Superman's energy output, but not John's. And I will say Amanda Waller has something against Superman characters right now, because she has Connor Kent captured and trying to lead the Suicide Squad in that book. So I don't know if we're building up to a big Superman family versus Amanda Waller thing going on here, but just interesting to note how that might carry over later. I'm not entirely sure. But Superman is trying to bond with his son. He's detached from. They're trying to play Coney ball, but that's because John's also detached because he knows the future. He's been there, so he knows when his dad's going to die, and he's encountered that it's soon, and he doesn't want to be / isn't ready to be Superman because he still wants to know who himself is. That's kind of, some layered storytelling here that I like. And yeah, I like this, but also I don't think it's especially a great fit for the first story to start off your run, though it's only going to be 2 issues, and we know this book looks to carry over directly into Action because he's writing both. So we'll get the end of this story and the next issue of Action Comics in 2 weeks. But overall, a good debut, but nothing on the level of what we were really impressed by in Superman War of the Worlds. But this is a good start. And, Phil Hester's art is fun here. I wish he would do more DC work. It was fun seeing him do the winter. The winter is coming. The winter is fallen event that we liked with Superman here. And it's fun to see him draw Superman and the Superman characters here as well. There's a backup story in this for Bibbo and called Tales of Metropolis with Sean Lewis and Sammy Basri. Admittedly, I jumped off of the Bendis Superman stuff around the time he revealed his identity. So I don't know Certus status quos here that carried over. I guess Metropolis is now a hub of the world as they're getting aliens moving there. I think it has something to do with the Legion book too. Something with the United Planets. But Bibbo is on this date for some reason, also hanging out with Jimmy Olsen, who I guess is helping him work on his column for the Daily Planet, because Superman wants to hear the voices of the people of Metropolis to share their experiences. So that's why Bibbo's writing. I'm not entirely sure. Overall, they're attacked by these 2 aliens, and also his date turns into smoke, and it wasn't real, but prompts Bibbo to write about the true values of the people of Metropolis and don't forget where they come from. I don't fully get how this all ties together. Admittedly, I just don't. So I'm 1 for 2 on backup features this week. I enjoyed the Wonder Woman one more, and Vince will talk about that in a little bit, but And the first week, they seem really disposable. Talking about backup features in itself, yeah, they seem really disposable and not at all worth the now inflated price counts of these standard issues. So that's where we lie on those. How do we feel about Superman 29?
I liked it. Is Coney Ball a Tomasi or Jurgens thing?
I think so, but I'm not entirely sure. It definitely seems like something that would be.
Okay, yeah, I haven't read those or Bendis. I know Tomasi was beloved for actually telling the story of fatherhood and family. And maybe Bendis had a tiny bit of that, but obviously, he was doing all kinds of things with John, aged him up, had him off in the Legion, not even in the Superman books, and stuff like that. So I don't know that he had time, and I don't know that it was his intention, but hopefully we at least get that here, even if people don't like the status quo that Bendis changed it to. I mean, it's kind of like, Marvel did it with Cable, but it's kind of hard to put that kind of thing back in the bottle. If they were to de-age John, that's a really mind mess thing. But we already get a bit of that here, so I don't know. Until the next reboot, we're just gonna have teenage John, or whatever, or they could. Who knows? I mean, there's things they could do, but I liked this, and I thought the Hester art was good.
Yeah, same. You guys, you pretty much touched on a lot of stuff I was going to mention, but yeah, Phil Hester's art, definitely a treat in this book. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I guess I'll keep reading this.
He's only doing one more issue, so it'll end in action, and then we get someone else. I think Jamal Abel's taking over.
So I'm on for next issue. So
yeah, it's a good start to his run, and I do like that he is addressing John, because that is a huge blanket that's lying over the status of the Superman and his family of characters right now. But I'll let Vince talk about Wonder Woman number 770.
Yep. Post Infinite Frontier, whatever, new creative team, new status quo. We extensively covered all of the previous run, I believe, or maybe we skipped the final issue. Started out really strong and then went off the cliff. This time we have Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad co-writing, with art by Travis Moore, colors by Tamara Bonvillain. So Diana just wakes up in Asgard randomly in an endless cycle of battle and feast with no penalty to death. I guess in part this is coming right out of her death in Death Metal, which I didn't read. And there's pages in between here where it's like some disembodied voice is talking to her and is like, hey, you're Wonder Woman, remember, don't get stuck here. I honestly felt like we didn't fully need those. Like, you can get across the story without those. She literally looks like Marvel's portrayal of Sif, which is maybe intentional since she's in Asgard. Her buddy is Siegfried, and we see Thor here too, kind of really quickly in the background. This is, DC's version of the Asgardian Thor, obviously not Marvel. He's appeared in other things, he's appeared in New God stories occasionally. He fights Orion famously in Walt Simonson stuff, which makes sense because Walt Simonson also known for Thor. Ratatosk, who is a Norse mythology thing. I can't think. I'm sure there's a version of Ratatosk in Marvel, but off the top of my head, I can't think of instances where he's been used. In this, pretty close to the mythology, he's like a little squirrel. And his job in mythology and essentially in this is to watch over Yggdrasil, the world tree. And he tells Diana that Ragnarok is coming and Wonder Woman needs to help. And she kind of understands she's Wonder Woman, but not totally. And she has to go find the Valkyries. And by the end, Siegfried is his kind of like life-death cycle within Valhalla is kind of cooped up. This is fine. It's not really what I want in a Wonder Woman book. The art is fantastic. I'm hoping, and I assume that this will move past this Asgard thing, past the first arc. But it's similar to, every once in a while on this show, I've made comments on for a new run on a character, you should, for your first arc, there are certain things where you don't want to go too far off the beaten path. That was my major thing when we briefly read Saladin Ahmed's Ms. Marvel run, where it was a cosmic story and she's fighting aliens and stuff, when the character to that point was, this grounded street level character that was all about her interactions with her friends and her family. And that's kind of how I feel here, where, I mean, Wonder Woman has always had mythology stuff, but not usually Norse mythology. Then there's a backup here, and this backup, I think maybe the most successful backup of the DC books we read this week. I didn't read all of them, but Mike, I think, read most of them, so he could comment in a second. This is a young Diana story written by Jordi Belair, art by Paulina Ganuccio. Probably pronounced wrong. It's a flashback to Themyscira. Diana's young. Jumpa is here, which is basically her kangaroo buddy who was introduced in the Golden Age. Didn't appear like a ton. It's not like it was a super recurring thing, but was a character in the Golden Age. And also apparently, according to a quick wiki, I haven't read these books, appears in Morrison's Earth 1 Wonder Woman books. So I love that we're getting a little Jumpa renaissance here. I hope, I'd love to see in the modern day actual books, the current day stories. We see a little bit of young Diana's kind of immaturity and her ambition. She's growing up. It's fun. Paulina's art is perfect for it. I almost feel like they should give this backup impressed me more than the Thor and Loki story. So I almost feel like DC should give this like a whole OGN and do a young Diana thing. And I'm sure, little girls and little boys would love this. I loved it.
Yeah, this was easily the best backup I've read for New Frontier or no Infinite Frontier so far. Keep in mind that Batman Urban Legends was like they didn't really have backups. It was an anthology book with multi-part stories. So we had this and Superman. This was better than the Superman one, and it made sense. Young Diana makes sense. You still get a little bit of familiar, but the new the art in this book is really good. It's the standout. Definitely for this week in different areas of it. I personally like the status quo. The Norse mythology for Wonder Woman I think is a fun idea. There's a little bit of vibes of the more recent God of War game because we took Kratos from Greek mythology and we stuck him in Norse mythology, and it was kind of a fun blend. Maybe trying to do the same thing with Wonder Woman. But I like where the path we're down is eventually she's going to be in the blue, red, and gold costume again at some point, but she's kind of off the board as rediscovering herself after her death, and the other heroes know that she's eventually going to come back because DC's handling Hippolyta on the Justice League, and we'll see that next week with the Justice League number 59 I think, with Bendis and David Marquez, and then we also are getting Wonder Girl soon with Yara Flora by Joelle Jones. So the Wonder Woman office is kind of big right now. We have a lot of characters, so I feel like you taking the spotlight a little bit away from Diana to give the other characters some shine here, and give her off on her own like side quest do stuff. Overall, though, I like the book. I liked this more than Superman this week, but only by a little bit, just because I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, I think this character. This is the character that came out of Future State, right?
Yeah, because at the end of Future State, she's thrown in. She gets this costume at the very end, so she's picking up here.
Well, Dan, this isn't the new character that it was introduced.
Yeah, this is still the same Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay.
This is not like the South American chick. This is like movie Wonder Woman, 1940 Wonder Woman.
Yeah, this seems like just a much different like take now compared to like what we were reading before this, like even before Future State, like that whole run seemed like way different than this. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably keep reading this. I do like the art in the backup story though. Like I can see that kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, like I'm looking at some books here, like Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. Like it's kind of like drawn like that same type of like art style where it's kind of like more like childish, I guess, in a way, but like also like more approachable for like little kids. I don't know. If that's
I mean, top to bottom, this book was great on the art, main story and backup. All right, I'll go into Daredevil. Daredevil number 28, Chip Zdarsky, Marco Cicchetto, no Mike Hawthorne. He's not doing different parts of this issue. All Marco Cicchetto. We have moved past the King in Black, which is funny because the event hasn't wrapped up yet. But the appropriately titled story here is called "Are You Okay?" and it really deals with the fallout of this event and also the prison experience so far with Matt and his decision to go to prison at the end of like the big arc before King in Black happened. He's confronted by Kirsten McDuffie and kind of in her frustration boils over on him, saying like, what he's doing isn't helping and it's just self-serving himself. And Matt also has to meet with the prison's therapist because he clearly is not okay, and it's only made him worse when he inadvertently gets another inmate killed when he goes to sit down with them. Like the inmate approaches him at lunch, and then he's seen talking with Daredevil, and these inmates try to attack him, and Daredevil saves him, but later in night he ends up committing suicide, and Matt looks at it and goes, well, Spider-Man's the one who brought him here, and Matt Murdock was the prosecutor when he was the DA with Fisk. I think this near the end of Charles Soule's run. He might have been a mayor too. So he's responsible for putting him in prison, and now he's dead. So Matt is responsible for that. And he ends up meeting with Marcus, who's the inmate that saved him. He pulled the lever on the electric chair to get the symbiote off him. And they start to have another, comforting conversation about kind of the rules that's going on in here. And then at the very end, he reveals that he's been poisoned. So that's our cliffhanger. But we do have the Elektra and Kingpin parts here. Elektra has taken the girl that she saved from the symbiotes. Her name's Alice, and she's preparing to care for her, but struggling with supporting weak individuals. So she's going about it in her own way, like telling the kid to like pull yourself together, and when you're ready, go down to the gym here, and I'll teach you how to fight. So maybe she's getting a sidekick. She's starting to look out for this girl who she feels responsible for, and then Kingpin is really realizing that no matter how many times he gains comfort and thinks that he's finally have his bearings and Hell's Kitchen is under control, something comes to destroy it. So he's really going to turn his attention to like, I got to kill Daredevil and really hammer it home at this point. Solid issue and deals with the fallouts of the event and Matt's recent decisions. It's a good reset issue, moving forward for the deeper stories that Zdarsky has planned for this run. A standardized but well expected, very solid and good issue of Daredevil at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this is like continuing to kind of subvert, I guess if that's the right word, like our expectations of kind of where Chip is going with this. Like originally it kind of sounded like it was going off the same beats as like Brubaker's run with going to jail and all that stuff, but he finds a way to make this kind of more his own story and kind of throw in some nuances and stuff like that, like with all the interaction going on with the prison and Elektra's kind of storyline in this book. So yeah, I really like it. I mean, I'm definitely continuing reading this, obviously, but yeah, another solid issue, just a lot more kind of build up and some really good moments here. So
yeah, and then good balance by Zdarsky too, because now he's working with three characters in Elektra, Matt, and Kingpin. We really at the beginning of this we just had Matt and Kingpin, and then Elektra was in the beginning, and then she's now come back. And good balance between all of them. I mean, it's still dominated by Matt, though, which is, surprising because I really thought he'd turn the attention to Elektra now that she's in her own Daredevil costume. But a good flow for all of them. But I'll let you take Homesick Pilots number 4.
Yeah, we'll see where all that leads us to. But anyways, getting into Homesick Pilots number 4, written by Dan Waters, art by Casper Weingard. Sorry about that. Amy is attacked by a giant VHS tape monster as her friend Buzz tries to save her from the haunted house as a giant robot creature. So he kind of has like a mech suit on. Buzz tells Amy that the house killed the nuclear bastards, which is like the what do you call the band that I guess was like competing with them and like different stuff. And she's stunned by this. She did not know that the house actually killed all of them. So she's like, what the heck? The house then attacks her and gives her white hair. And she eventually escapes the house. So that's kind of where we're left at. I'm sorry if this is a really short synopsis, but I can't really... I mean, there's really not a lot else going on in this issue. So,
It read really fast. I'm going to say it went by really fast, but now Amy's reunited with her friend, and that's the thing where we go on here. This isn't ongoing, so we're going to get deeper into that, and now we kind of shift focus to now she has another character that she knows that is going to handle this haunted house thing with her.
Yep.
This went from very much kind of the fetch quest that we thought of, get all the haunted items from the house, to something more, and that's fine. And then Casper Wingard's art still continues to be very, very good, and the colors in this book just breathtaking every issue. But we'll turn it over to Vince for Strange Academy.
Scotty Young and Berta Ramos. This is issue number 9. We start with a flashback to Calvin's abusive childhood in a foster home, and some combo of Ramos on the pencils and inks and colorist Edgar Delgado give it a totally different look, for the flashback aesthetic, and it works well. Scarlet Witch is rocking what I thought was a cool outfit, but apparently online some people think it's controversial or are critiquing it. It's basically combining elements of like a business casual kind of look that you'd expect from a teacher, but with elements of her costume. She has her, her tiara on, but then she basically has bodice, or corset. I think that would be the more correct term, which it's part of her costume, and they're trying to fuse the two looks. I think it makes sense. I think it looks cool. It's Family Day at Strange Academy, and I guess Toad's dad is Man-Thing. I didn't really think I knew that. Or Man-Thing's just there. Maybe his mom's dating Man-Thing. I don't know. The Voodoo Zombie Girl and the Limbo Demon Girl are teased for a relationship. I forget their names. Loki is here kind of subbing in as the kind of parental guardian for the two Asgardian twins. And everyone competes in silly challenges, and Emily, the main character's mom, is hyper competitive. So she's like racing Loki and trying to beat him in a race and things like that. Ramos gets to do some action, and there's some wild set pieces here. Calvin and Doyle are not happy about Family Day. I already mentioned, Calvin, bounced between foster homes and stuff and wasn't always in a happy situation. And then Doyle's dad is, Dormammu. So they're, kind of awkward on the bring your parents to work to school day. So they're sneaking off to make trouble. And away from everyone else, the mindless ones have beef with Doyle. And meanwhile, this kid literally just died 2 issues ago and was brought back to life. And so now the mindless ones are like, let's kill this kid while no one's looking, because the mindless ones, were totally screwed over by his dad, Dormammu. But, they get away, and then they have to do the activities anyways, even though they don't have parents. And this was a ton of fun, just like every issue.
Over in Black Hammer Visions number 2, this is Jeff Johns, Scott Collins, and Bill Crabtree on colors. Second issue in this miniseries that reunites this issue reunites the former Flash team of the early 2000s. Every issue is a different creative team. Jeff Johns and Scott Collins. For me, this is the first time since working for DC that I think we've seen Jeff Johns do something not for them. This feels correct, but it might not be. I know he's got his Image book that's coming out next month. I think it's the first week of April. That comes out. But this issue focuses on the character of Madame Dragonfly from Black Hammer. So story follows at first this driver who stopped on the way. I think he actually stopped by Abe, asking where he's going on this dark and stormy night. Really fun rain effects from Scott Collins' art here, saying that he's going to his mother's farm to get her supplies, and he's taken the backcountry route because he's never seen it before, and it's he hears it's scenic and nice before the rain started. But he's warned, hey, don't stop for the next 10 miles and just keep going. But it flips here where we learn that this guy isn't a good dude. He's got this kid that's tied up in the back, and he does stopping at this gas station, and the kid manages to escape, and he runs away and into Madame Dragonfly's cabin, where he's then shown all of the horrors in the inside. He's running into the different rooms that lead into different dimensions of horror, and he comes face to face with his mother, who was dying from cancer, and he basically gets to see her death and basically what orphaned him. And the man catches him, but he's then killed by the boy's mother with the help of the other beings he encounters. They tear his head off, which is pretty gnarly. And then he's met by Madame Dragonfly, where we learn that his name's Jacob, and she will take him in time, get his own farm of horrors, he's going to take the guy's farm. But after he's transformed into Kid Dragonfly, where he's going to learn all the ways of the different doorways of horror. So fun stuff. Liked Collins' art here. I'm usually kind of a hit or miss on Scott Collins, but I liked it here. Next one up is for Abraham Slam, and it's going to be Chip Zdarsky and Johnny Christmas, which should be a pretty fun team up. Overall, though, 2 for 2 on Black Hammer Visions. Vince is going to talk about the long-awaited X-Men book, Children of the Atom.
Well, maybe some people were long-awaiting it. I was just kind of waiting. Children of the Atom #1, written by Vidi Ayala, art by Bernard Chang. So we have a new cast of characters here, some young mutants. They haven't made it to Krakoa yet. They all have copycat powers, or at least the aesthetics of other characters. There's a character that literally goes by Cyclops last. That's very obvious what her powers are, or at least, what she does. There's Daycrawler, which he bamfs around and stuff, but he looks like a normal human. There's Gimmick, which basically has Gambit's powers. And Cherub is like an archangel kind of thing. And then Marvel Boy, I think, at least visually, it reminds me of like a pre-fur beast, like Silver Age Beast. But then I think the angel guy uses something that looks like Havoc's powers. And then Marvel Boy uses like some kind of telepathy or hypnosis. So I don't know precisely, but I'll kind of come back to that a little bit. In the beginning, so they have like their little vigilante team. They're fighting Hell's Bells, which is a supervillain team from Peter David's 90s X Factor. And we're told in one of these info pages that they were depowered on M-Day. If you haven't seen mutants, since M-Day, you can pretty safely assume that they were depowered on M-Day. But I don't remember that these characters were ever referenced as being depowered on M-Day before this. I don't think they appeared between 90s X Factor and this. So it's kind of retroactive, reveal here. And suddenly, after they dispatch Hell's Bell, or really Hell's Bells runs away, suddenly Pixie, Magma, and Maggot show up out of nowhere to basically say like, hey, hi kids, like you're doing mutant stuff, and basically try and pressure them to come to Krakoa. And the kids kind of meet them back with a little bit of hesitance, like, we got family, or we got to figure stuff out, or we got to go to school. I love seeing Maggot, and Maggot's used in a kind of funny way. Then back on Krakoa, there's a debate between basically all the top mutants, like Wolverine is here, and Nightcrawler, Jean Grey, and Cyclops, and Storm. They're basically debating, hey, these kids are showing up in the news and stuff. Should we kidnap them and force them to come to Krakoa? And meanwhile, they're playing pool, which is cleverly conveyed in the art. Between panels, you see a tiny little panel of a pool ball bouncing around. Wolverine is portrayed as getting buzzed from alcohol, which is a big nope. Doesn't happen. And for some reason, Cerebro can't find these kids. So there's something going on. And they decide, okay, we might not kidnap them, but we should still look into them a little bit more. So Storm's going to go track them down, presumably next issue. Then we really dive into the kind of personal lives and the civilian lives of these kids. We learn that the latest Dazzler song has a feature with Lizzo. And all these kids, they're friends. They go to prep school. There's a fun basketball scene. The Cyclops lass is romantically into the angel guy, but he might have a relationship with the other chick. It doesn't matter. And the Cyclops chick also upkeeps an online archive that catalogs all of this amateur footage of mutants. Whenever someone on their cell phone camera, sees Wolverine running through the street. And then they suit up, they get on the subway, they go to Coney Island, and there's a gate under the pier at Coney Island. So they walk up to the gate and they touch it and they can't go through. So I don't know, I guess that's the twist thing. I saw some, clickbait CBR article, which is Marvel hid this reveal for 1 year. And I'm this is not a big deal. So there's something wrong with them. We've seen other characters that can't go through the gates that are supposed to be mutants. We saw Kitty Pryde, and then, there's some complications with Franklin Richards that have, gone back and forth. So I don't know if these are, fake mutants, mutant growth hormone, or like made in a lab, or I think, the obvious thing to me is that this is kind of the current day precursor to Mr. Sinister's chimeras, which are talked about in House of X Powers of 10. The Chang art is kind of inconsistent. There's great pages with nice action. I thought the basketball scene was fun, but then there's some really sloppy moments, and like in major like moments that should be executed well. There's a lot of teen speak as well. It's not like overly grating. It's fine, I guess. It's not actually off base. Vita Yala, a younger writer, but it's just going to be dated, immediately in a couple years. So my preference is usually to not bother with that stuff. Mike, did you read this? I don't think so.
No, I did not.
Okay, yeah. It's not really worth it. I might continue just to figure out what the hell this is, but if that's going to take like 20 issues of this, I'm not sure. But also, I think this is already confirmed as a miniseries, so it might be only 6 issues, but I don't think I want to read 6 issues. Tune in when the next issue comes out to see if I'll talk about it.
Maybe I will. All right. So our next book here is Wolverine, Black, White, and Blood, number 4. So we got 3 stories here. The first one is The Art of Loss, written by Kelly Thompson, art by Kari Randolph. Somewhere in Tokyo, this issue takes place after Uncanny X-Men number 173, when Mariko calls off the wedding between her and Logan. So Wolverine runs into Mystique, who wants to know where Rogue is before getting into a fight with Wolverine. Wolverine kind of leaves her very wounded and stuff. And after the battle, Storm shows up with her mohawk, and since that's what she's sporting at this time in the continuity, I guess. And the two go drinking together, because what better drinking buddy to have than Storm? So really cool to see that. But yeah, obviously they kind of show Logan not taking the call off for the wedding very well. So next story here is Ryuso, written by Ed Brisson, art by Leonard Kirk Reds, and Andres Mosa. Oh, yeah, I guess. Oh, whoops, I read that wrong. Oh, wow. Whoops. Leonard Kirk is the artist. The Reds, the colors, excuse me, is by Andre Mosa. Wow. It's Friday night. I'm tired. Don't judge me. Anyway, this story takes place shortly after Uncanny X-Men number 229. Wolverine attacks a ship of Reavers when he is shot and falls into the water, where he is then attacked by a giant shark and escapes barely, only to take back the ship and kill all of the Reavers on board. So really cool there. Kind of interesting to hear his inner monologue of how he will sink to the bottom of the sea if he passes out from all the blood loss, which I think was kind of interesting to see there. So yeah, next story here is Sticks and Stones, written by Stephen S. DeKnight, art by Paulo Segura. Wolverine lands in the Savage Land, where he finds himself face to face with Sauron. He then gets attacked by a giant T-Rex who eats him, and then Wolverine actually cuts his way out of the T-Rex by cutting through the T-Rex's head and basically killing the T-Rex in the process. We then get this guy named Garak, who takes a swing at killing Wolverine, which he eventually fails at, which causes Sauron and Wolverine to just resume fighting each other again. So yeah, these issues are fine. There's really not much to really go off of here. There's not a lot of story or development here. They're just kind of just fun little quirky moments with Wolverine. Yeah, so shout out to Mike for putting the Reds in for only one of the 3 books here, which really threw me for a loop. So sorry I can't read, but yeah.
I mean, I think this is the only one that they have credits on the Reds, which is weird. They waited 4 issues to do that.
Yeah.
And this is also not, to my knowledge, the first time they marked what exactly issues X takes place before or after in X-Men continuity, which is also weird. But at the end of this, they also write that this is the end of this series and then will be replaced by Carnage, Black, White, and Blood, which to me, I have no interest in because Carnage solo sounds terrible. At least with Wolverine, varied stories you can do here. Overall, weak ending for me. Every issue I felt had a better story than any of these ones. These are all fine. Like, I guess Kerry Randolph's art was my favorite to look at here, and Kelly Thompson had like a fine, serviceable story. And then same thing goes with Ed Brisson. Wolverine fighting sharks is fun, but like overall, like nothing here really wowed me, and this is over. So I guess whether you're going to read Carnage or not is where we leave off here. Like, it was fine. Didn't wow me. None of these wowed me.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this. It's basically the same comment that we've had every single issue. Like, none of these stories would really stack out super strong to Batman Black and White, kind of the progenitor of this kind of premise and format. Kerry Randolph definitely was the highlight art-wise. Similar to other issues, I felt like Paulo Sequeira's art was the least, fitting for this format with less color, because he has a little bit more of like a more dimensional style. So even though he drew some pretty badass things, he drew dinosaurs and Sauron, which was cool. This third one didn't have a footnote though, did it? Or did it?
No, it did not.
Okay, yeah. So I thought that, it was strange that these two were in this issue, because Kelly Thompson and Ed Brisson are kind of like both, X-Men fan turned writers who have contributed to X-Men, but neither of Ed Brisson was involved in Dawn of X, he had his New Mutants run intertwined with Hickman, but neither of these two are technically writing X-Men books right now. And they're people that I know are fans of X-Men and were very excited when they were writing X-Men books. So it's kind of interesting that they, were thrown these little Wolverine stories and then chose to, theoretically the editor could have chose, but they chose to tie their stories directly to points in X-Men continuity, tie them with footnotes. This is easy to say because this is like a third of all X-Men history, but obviously they're both, Claremont era things. This is weird ending. Carnage, I don't know, like I might just skim through every issue to see if there's like one like really cool art highlight. But yeah, I don't care about Carnage.
Yeah, like I understand Black, White, Red. Oh, he's red and he does cause a lot of people to bleed, but like Wolverine made sense. Like, like Vince said, none of the stories in here. I think there was like maybe one or two that were really on the stack level of something you'd see in Batman Black and White. So 2 and 4 issues, not a great batting average. You get 3 stories an issue. So that's where we leave off on that, and the series is done. But it was fun. So
past the Carnage.
What?
Are you going to read the Deadpool one?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Proctor Valley Road, #1. Grant Morrison and Alan Wild with Naomi Franquez and Tamara Bonvillain. New series from Boom Studios here. Reading this because a favorite of ours, Morrison, is one of the writers in the book, and I'll always check out a Grant Morrison #1. Though first time in a while I've seen him have a kiter, which is different. But art and colors here, very good, and could see this as like a show on like a Cartoon Network, like in that kind of wheelhouse sort of thing. This group of girls is trying to raise money for tickets to a Janis Joplin concert. This book's taking place in 1970, like a small town in California, and they get the idea of like charging for a spook tour because there's an area near town called Proctor Valley Road that's kind of got like some ghost stories associated with it. So they're like, oh, we can get these guys and we'll go and, take them on this tour and they'll pay us so we can get enough money for the tickets. But there's like a huge miscommunication. They think that the guys think that they're going to go out there and they're going to get laid, but no, there's not. It's just this ghost tour. So they leave off and storm off, but they're attacked by like these demon bears. and they're like all killed while the girls are like driving off back to town, so they don't notice or hear it. But the next day at school, they're informed of the disappearance of the boys, and that they were also, by complete coincidence, also getting their draft notices. So they think that they maybe tried to flee the border, and they have, you know, sources saying that the last time they saw these people, they were with the girls. So they have to now come up with an explanation on what exactly happened, or they're gonna get in some trouble. So there's enough charm here, and the characters all have different voices that are really fun and entertaining. Kind of a Scooby Doo gang vibe going on here. A lot of Morrison-esque dialogue, which makes sense because he's, you know, writing part of this book. I mostly stick to Morrison, strictly in trade now. I don't know if I'm going to check out issue number 2 on the show, but I'll probably get around to reading this in my own time in collect editions, because this was definitely fun, and I like the kind of Scooby-Doo vibe that we've got going on here. But overall, you know, art's fun and fun premise, and I am excited to see where it goes. But I'll lead into our final book before the retro.
Yes, very weird book, Karmen #1 by Guillaume March. He both writes and draws it. There's like a color assistant credit, and then there's also a translation credit, which I'll get to. So I was initially slightly apprehensive on this, and I think reasonably so, because we have writing not only from a career artist, and, you know, sometimes doesn't always you know, translate well, but also someone without English as their native language. March is from Spain, and on that note, there is a translation credit, but there's not, that I could see, a separate letterer credit. So I really have no idea who lettered this. I don't know if, like, they took, like, if Guillaume lettered it himself in Spanish, and then the translation guy kind of like fixed it up, you know, made the lettering English, but it's Guillaume's lettering, or if the translation guy lettered this fully. I don't know. But I wanted to point that out because the lettering, in my opinion, it's not perfectly legible, but about like a couple pages in, you kind of get used to it. But I would definitely choose a more simple, legible font. There's some trippy pages that narrate some science nonsense about memory and such. And we have a couple of them early on, and then there's like maybe one way deep into it. I didn't really think these were necessary, unless I get like a better grasp of the premise of the series as we move along. I don't know that these added much. They kind of just annoy you when you get to them. We meet a little girl named Catalina. She has pink hair, which is slightly confusing. I'll get to that in a second. She is a longtime childhood friend, a boy named Zisco, or Hisco. I don't know how to pronounce it. And 10 years later, his girlfriend doesn't appreciate his friendship with Catalina, and they might all be roommates. And then Kat tries to slit her wrists in the bathroom, but a chick also with pink hair. So at first I thought the main character was the little girl we met, and then blah, blah. A chick with pink hair named Karmen, the title of the book, walks right in on her, slitting her wrists, just walks into her bathroom. And Karmen wears basically like a skeleton onesie or something. It's not, you know, it's not explained. You don't see, you know, much fabric details, but she looks like a skeleton except for her head. And she does a little dance and then pulls bandages out of thin air to wrap Kat's wrists up. And she exhibits some other abilities along the way. But maybe she didn't save Kat. Now they are walking around on a different plane, kind of like ghosts. And there's one page where we see Kat is in the bathtub, surrounded by blood. So I'm pretty sure she died. And Kat and Karmen walk around, and Kat is just naked because no one can see her or smell her or hear her or touch her. So she's just walking around naked. I mean, you see a lot, but you also don't see that much. There's references to a Christmas story, like Kat thinks, like, you know, are you showing me everything I missed? Things like that. There's lots of pop culture references here, actually. There's a recurring Keanu Reeves joke and lots of movie references. And apparently if Kat touches someone, she'll become visible. And also she might like take on their deepest regret or things like that. And if she does touch someone, she will when she becomes visible, everyone will notice that she's naked and grooms herself, I'll say. But Guillaume March in his script says that much more explicitly. There's some comedy here. It's a little bit of like a Playboy style comedy, I'll say. And Kat figures out how to fly, and then she's flying around, and Carmen's like, all right, I got to go do something. I'll check up with you later. And there's like a little bit of an ominous tease. This is a little bit longer than, standard, American comic book. I think this is closer to 30 pages. Basically, what I gather is, Carmen is like the Grim Reaper. So she goes around and finds these people who are dying and kind of is like, hey, have fun in limbo for a little bit. Let me show you around, how to interact with the world without interacting with the world. And then something happens next, which will be revealed. Like I said, I'm not sure where this goes next, but I like it. March's usual slightly pervy tendencies are here, as our one main character wears a skin-tight costume and the other is naked the entire time. But I like I like the way he draws women, and not necessarily in a pervy way. I mean, that's kind of what he's known for, on his Catwoman run and other things he's done. The influence is obvious. He also has a variant cover from Milo Manara. So I enjoyed this. It's very weird. I'm going to keep reading it, assuming it even has a second issue. I don't even know.
Yeah, it is listed. It does. It's listed as an ongoing. So I think issues 2 and 3 are solicited. I like it too. I would say first that Guillaume March's art, I think, shines a lot better here than his recent work on Batman, and I think it's due to the colors. I think someone else is coloring him on Batman, so you see a big difference here. It's a really good color work and some really exceptional layout pages. I would, though, have to say that the writing isn't the best. The beginning pages until we get to the point where Carmen shows up, it feels kind of like a lot of disposable fluff. I feel like you could have communicated the history of Catalina and her friend and the girlfriend a lot better than without taking up the first 6 to 8 pages of the book, because it doesn't really start getting going until more than midway through, I feel, when Carmen shows up. And the Carmen design's really fun. The skeleton design is really weird and expressive in its own way, along with the hair and she's got a very expressive face as well. So you have that all going here, and then there's the quiet, sinister part to her. Is she the Grim Reaper? What's exactly going on? We already kind of get some heavy horror undertones in the book already, and then we have the 2 moments where she basically playfully scares Catalina, hinting, is there something deeper, more evil to her that we don't know yet? I don't know if it's a way, but it makes you think. Overall, though, yeah, there's something about it that makes you keep that you're gonna want to come back to it. And it does shine. And as far as an art standpoint, it's really, really good art output by Guillaume March, and some of my favorite stuff I've seen from him in a little bit of time here. Because he's obviously long tenured artist from DC, and he's done some Marvel work. But overall, I think a good issue 1 where definitely there's enough where we want to read the next one. But in terms of writing, it's not the strongest in different areas. But I look for it to tighten up in the next, as it goes on and we get more further into the plot. But it's time for the retro book, and we'll bring Dan back. He has All-Star Superman #7 from June of 2007.
Yes, and this retro issue marks me being safe from elimination next week. Just kidding. No, I don't have to do a retro issue next week. So, yeah. But anyways, guys, All-Star Superman #7, written by Grant Morrison, art by Frank Quietly, and inks and colors by Jamie Grant. So Leo Quintum continues searching the Underverse and senses something wrong or something big coming. Superman releases the Sun Eater from his Fortress of Solitude over Mars when Bizarro clones attack him from a nearby cube version of the Earth. So the Bizarros attack Metropolis, but Steve Lombard finds out he is immune to their touch. So Superman arrives and fights a Bizarro version of Superman, who claims he does not want to fight. So Quintum explains he believes they are weak to yellow sunlight, which is why they attack at night. So Superman saves Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and Perry White from Bizarro clones before flying off to their planet to send them back to the Underverse. So on Bizarro World, however, Superman meets Zimbarro for the first time. So yeah, I think from what we discussed, I think the issue that comes after this is like one of the most notable ones from this series, but I thought it was interesting to read this. So still gotta collect this at some point.
Have you never read this before?
No, but I'm adding it to my wish list for Inside Trade right now.
I don't want to be mean, but this is terrible for to pick this without reading like the 6 previous issues that go into it. Because everything builds on itself in its own way. Like, I thought you'd read this before and you're like, oh, I like this. Because it's, number one, it's sandwiched right between like the two of the 3 issues. I mean, this is 12 issues, but 2 issues here that are really notable. Number 6, which is the death of Pa Kent, which I think for favorite issues, I drew this one. And read it for that when we did when I think it was the height of the pandemic, right? When we were trying to come up with different gimmicks for us each week. And then issue 8 is the Sabaro issue, which I won't spoil for them. It's really, really good too. So it's sandwiched right between those. And then the other highlights I think would be the ending, and then the one where Superman creates the 24-hour serum that Lois can have superpowers. Other great moments in this book, though. It's my favorite comic book of all time. This whole series, but yeah, it's like I said, it's sandwiched between that, but everything's still really good here. The giant 1950s Silver Age reasoning to direct mirrors at the Earth to change the tides is like all really fun out there, Morrison stuff, and then Quietly is just so good. And then going back to this because I haven't read this in a long time, I really want to highlight just how good Jamie Grant's inks and colors on Superman are. Just that blue is the most perfect shade of blue you're ever going to see in that costume, along with the red on that cape. And then every highlight ever on everything of all the chaos that goes on. It's really exceptionally one of the best comic books ever made because of that. The whole creative team here, top to bottom, is fantastic.
Is it a lighter shade of blue, though?
What?
Is it a lighter shade of blue, though?
Is it a dumb joke you're making? I don't get the reference.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't have a ton much to say about All-Star. We've read an issue before. It's a masterpiece, in most regards. Though I think there are issues of All-Star that you can read on their own. And I think most of the series, I would say, is like that. But ironically, I would say these issues 7 and 8, if I recall correctly, like these are probably the 2 most tied to each other. Which, I mean, you pick the first one rather than the second one, though in a sense the second one might actually be more standalone. I don't know, but it's just funny that
I think the second one is more standalone.
We picked perhaps the issue that like most relies on reading other stuff, but it's still good on its own.
Yeah, like I said, it's good. Dan had a lot of stacked picks, though, for Juno 7 DC. There were like 5 books that we were all like, oh, you could choose this, this, and that. It's not a bad pick. I think it's just a bad pick for Dan, not having read the series before. But that's where it lies. So it's not a bad issue. It's good. But,
just means you got to catch up.
In the favorable or retro. Yeah, just, go and add it to your cart here, and then we'll pop it and see it in your next haul video.
Yes.
But
maybe
picks of the week, guys. What's picks of the week?
I think I'm gonna give it to Karmen.
I'm going Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman for me.
I'm gonna go with Vince. I'm gonna go with Karmen. There's enough intrigue there that wants me to really find out what's going on here.
Actually, I'm withdrawing. I'm switching mine to Nonstop Spider-Man.
Okay. Well, that would have been my number 2. Did you just bait me? Did you just want to see if I baited and went with you? Was that your ploy?
No, I just had to scroll up and remember.
All right. That's the end of our show. Dan wanted to add a segment of what else are we reading? Because we read all these books all week, and he wants to add a small segment of what else do we read when we have the time. So, Dan, do you want to share what you've been reading recently?
Of
Did
course.
you start us off?
Yeah, so this recently came in the mail. It was in my latest haul video, and really excited to get it read and go over it with you guys. But I'm reading Uncanny X-Men Omnibus 1 and 4, long-awaited, very anticipated book, which my co-hosts both are going to get / already do have. But I was a person who paid the IST price. They got it for cheaper than me. But yeah, it's really good so far. Only one issue in, obviously, but just really miss these characters. It's been 4 years since I've read the 3rd volume, so we'll see.
It's not like these characters haven't gone anywhere. You just don't read the current X-Men books.
I know, but it's like, yeah, it's just that like time period. I'm just really excited to like pick it up back up and start reading again. So
yeah, I had to double check just now. I have not received that book. For a second, I thought I did. I don't know. I haven't actually read a lot super recently, like within the past week or so. So I'm not going to answer the question remotely, but what I did yesterday is joined a Facebook group for Valiant collectors. And because someone recommended it to me because there's like a couple rare issues that I'm still tracking down, and ended up learning about the rarity of the newsstand editions of Valiant books. So I went through every single Valiant book I have to try and find newsstands, and I only had 2 total newsstand issues. So ended up, there's a guy that's sending me a package with like 5 issues that I need, and I'm gonna get that package, grab those 5 issues, and then put one of my newsstand books in it and send it right back to him. And one of those 5 issues he's giving me is the non-newsstand version of the issue I'm sending him. And I don't give a shit about, newsstand and the value of the books. I just need them so I can slice them up eventually. So 1 comic for the exact same comic plus 4 others that I need sounds like a deal.
All right. Only you would find a Facebook group for Valiant collectors to a difference of newsstand and direct market versions. Good God. I recently finished the Legends of the Dark Knight Matt Wagner hardcover, which I enjoyed a lot. And then more deeper before that, I read the classified edition of Incognito by Brubaker and Phillips, which has both series in it, and that was also obviously really good to do. Maybe we'll eventually do Incognito eventually, but that Matt Wagner Batman stuff, Mad Monk and Monster Men, damn, those are really good and fit very nicely into that year 1 before Long Halloween, early era Batman that I enjoy reading. And then that Matt Wagner Batman is right in that wheelhouse of like Bruce Timm, David Mazzucchelli for me were probably damn near perfect of how I want Batman to look. But that's your show for this week. We'll be back with more books for you next week. Take care until we see you then. Peace.